Beauvais in a snowy Ontario, Canada today. We had a good 6 to 8 inches of snow last night, and we are here today with you to present episode 68 of the Yakking Show. This is where we talk about life, business, and more, and we try and bring you tips and ideas for a changing world. We've had a really interesting lineup of guests. We have more coming, and today's is no exception. Before I hand over to Kathleen to introduce our guest, it would be a huge boost for us if you could hit the subscribe button if you're watching this on YouTube or BitChute. The more subscribers, the better for us. We would really appreciate it. And if you'd like to give our video a like, that's great too. Enough from me. I need to introduce my co-host on the show, Kathleen from Waterloo. Hello, Kathleen. How are you doing today?
Hello, Peter. I'm well, thank you so much. And hello and welcome to all of you. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We so appreciate you. And we love reading your comments. We read all of them, so please do keep them coming. And if anyone out there is interested in becoming a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to either Peter or myself. And as Peter was saying, we do have a special guest today. His name is Jorge Meneses. See, I knew I was going to mess this up. See? George, welcome. Your last name? Meneses, right?
There you go. You got it. Thank you, Kathleen and Peter, for having me.
Well, oh
Good
my
to see
goodness.
you.
I was practicing it rehearsing it in my mind, and so there you go, right? Oh.
It's okay. It's a tough
George,
one.
you are a consultant with WSI, which is a digital marketing agency, and you also head a chapter of the BNI, which is Business Networking International, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But first, can you give our audience a little bit about your background and what made you decide to go with WSI?
Well, thank you, Kathleen and Peter, for having me on the show. My background, well, I worked for actually Frito-Lay for 24 years. And when I left Frito-Lay, I was wondering what I should do, if I should get back into corporate or look into something else. And I did some research on starting my own business, and I decided I was going to purchase a franchise. And I went with WSI Digital Marketing, which is a Canadian company. It's been around for almost 25 years now. Yeah, great company, and I love technology, so it was the right spot for me.
Very good. George, this has been obviously a good year and a challenging year for many businesses, but I guess working with a number of clients as you do, you've seen both extremes. Some of your clients perhaps benefiting from the effects of the shutdown, and I guess quite a few clients really struggling and wondering how they're going to survive. So give us a bit of a picture in your view of how the pandemic and the shutdowns have affected people in business.
Yeah, you're right, Peter. It's been kind of drastic ends of the spectrum, because some businesses have had to close down due to government regulation. So obviously they can't, run their business. They can't bring in revenue, so they are really hurting. And then we have other businesses, that a lot of e-commerce businesses and cleaning businesses that have to do with disinfecting and stuff have done really well. So it's the opposite end of the spectrum, and there's not a lot of in between.
No.
So you're either very successful at this time, or you're basically shut down.
Yeah. I would guess it'd be better to be a shop fitter with a good inventory of plexiglass than it would be to be a travel agent right at the moment.
That is true, and we've had some businesses that have had to pivot, and whether they, for example, we had a painting business that couldn't paint, so they ended up doing deliveries. So
yeah, interesting.
Little bit of a pivot.
Yeah. Huh? Kathleen, you got something you wanted to ask George?
Yes, George, could you give us some examples of your client success stories?
Yeah, so I'll talk to one of my roofing clients. So I have a roofing client that for years was doing a lot of marketing on print media, yellow pages, and things like that, newspapers, traditional type of media. And they were spending quite a bit of money in that, but they were having a hard time quantifying or getting the return on the investment for that marketing money. And then when we took over their marketing, introduced some digital marketing to them, Google AdWords, social media, search engine optimization. Their leads started pouring in, and they actually, usually I meet with clients once a month, and every time I'd go to his office, he'd have a stack of referrals and what did he call them? Follow-ups that he'd have to go do, and he was always so super busy. He had to add salespeople to his business, which, you know, it grew by about 30% in the first year, which was amazing.
Very good.
Interesting.
Excellent.
So just to extend that a little bit, so when you're working with a client and you're basically sitting down with them and you're going through, what is the process exactly? Do you review their website? Do you see what they do from a marketing standpoint? What is the process that your company goes through with them?
It depends on the client, but usually I like to give them a snapshot of their business when it comes to online. So we send them a snapshot, and it kind of gives them a grade. It's like a report card, and it grades their website, it grades their social media marketing, it grades you know, their search engine optimization. If they have an e-commerce site, it'll grade that too. And then from there, it'll give us some ideas on where we need to focus.
Interesting.
So, George, build on from that. Now, I've had a look at your website. I have a pretty good idea of what you do, but obviously people listening to the show or watching the video are not looking at your website right now. So give us, our viewers and listeners, an idea of the scope of the services you can provide through WSI.
Well, basically A to Z when it comes to online marketing, but what we focus on is local optimization and Google AdWords. So getting their phone to ring on a regular basis is kind of my focus. Driving leads to their website, social media profiles, and Google Ads is kind of where I like to live.
Okay, just picking up on social media, I know from talking to a lot of small businesses myself over the years, they say, yeah, we know we need to be on social media, but you know, we're trying to fix pipes or put in electrical outlets. We haven't got time for all this social media nonsense. Do you have people that do you have services that can provide the content for them as well?
Absolutely, we have content writers. They'll produce the content and we post it up for them. One thing we do like to do is have the client reply to any questions or comments or stuff like that, because they're the experts in the field. We can do that, but we're not the experts in their field. So if there's a question about, hey, what are your hours of operation or what's your address, that's easy to answer. But if it's a more technical question, it's usually better if the client replies to those technical questions.
Sure, but at least you've taken a lot of the more routine stuff off his shoulders so he can get on with his plumbing or electrical or landscaping or whatever and only get onto the detailed stuff, as you say. Yeah, oh, that sounds good.
Absolutely.
So how Kathleen? Would a company go about increasing their mailing list? So, you know, people hear, oh, we need to increase our mailing list. We need to capture more email addresses, but that's not necessarily an easy thing to do. So what advice would you give to a business out there that knows that they need to drive more eyes to their website and they need to have landing pages to capture their email address so that they can send out regular newsletters? Do you have any tips and tricks for people?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say something quick and easy to do is run a contest. Whenever you give something away, people tend to really gravitate towards that. So if you're giving away a gift card, it doesn't have to be anything crazy. If you're giving away a gift card or anything like that, you have a form that people fill out, and you can capture their, you know, name, phone number, email address from there, and then, you know, run it for a month or so, and then from there you can capture a whole bunch of people for that mailing list.
Right. And then one on social media, I've been reading a couple of reports just in the last few days, mainly since the US election, that a lot of people have got fed up with the censorship that's going on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Those are the three that people are complaining about. And there's quite a big migration of people to some of the newer sites like Parler and Gab and that other one, MeWe and BitChute for video. Have you picked any of that up at all?
A little bit. People get frustrated with social media. You know, censorship is a part of our lives, but at the end of the day, you got to take everything with a grain of salt, and make sure you do your research, right? But yeah,
Absolutely.
some people are gravitating away from the more popular social
Hmm.
media platforms, but they're still very popular and very powerful. So, a lot of our clients are hanging out on, the Facebooks, the Instagrams, LinkedIn, stuff like that. So yeah, you do your research, kind of figure out where you can fit in as a business, but you can't do everything, right? So you have to kind of pick and choose where you want to spend your time, effort, and resources, and
Sure.
where your client base is going to be hanging out, and that's kind of what we focus our clients on.
Hmm.
And at least you can do that for them. So someone, again, using our little scenario from earlier, where you've got a guy that's spending all day, 10, 12 hours a day doing his trade, doing his business, and not that interested in working out whether Facebook's a better bet than Twitter, for example. You're the experts. You've got the data for him, can say, well, this is where you need to go, right?
Yeah, we do a lot of work with trades, plumbers,
Mm-hmm.
electricians, HVAC companies. They're doing their job. They're professionals in that, and they hire us to help them with that back end stuff and promoting their business.
Absolutely.
So do you work, you said you work with the plumbers and electricians. So is it mostly small, but you work with medium and large corporations as well? Is that right?
Yeah, myself, I work with mostly small and medium sized businesses.
Mm-hmm.
WSI does have some bigger clients, uh, but me, I work with mostly small to medium sized businesses, and home services works really well with what we do.
Mm-hmm. I would think it would. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Very good. And and because of the nature of that business, you were talking about local optimizing for local leads. They're working in a limited area, so that's very important to find people in the local community, customers in the local community.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the biggest things that we really help businesses with is Google My Business,
Mm-hmm.
and it's very important to be found locally in your area. So you have to really have a vibrant Google My Business page with good reputation management, good testimonials on there, to help people find you and learn about your business.
Sure, sure. Can I? You're involved in BNI. I think Kathleen mentioned at the beginning that you head a chapter of the BNI, and I don't know too much about BNI, and I know a lot of our listeners probably know even less than I do. I did go to a couple of breakfasts some years back. I was invited by a colleague to go along, and I thought it was a pretty good idea. It didn't work for my business, or wouldn't have worked, but I think the idea is good. So, would you like to tell our listeners a little bit about the BNI organization?
Sure, yeah. So I'm in the chapter in Cambridge. It's called the BNI TNT chapter, and we meet on Tuesdays from 11:30 to 1. And BNI, it stands for Business Networking International. It's been around for over 30 years. It's in over 70 countries now around the world.
Mm-hmm.
I think over 9,000 chapters and over 260,000 members.
Wow.
So yeah, big organization, and it's great. We have about 21 members in our chapter. At one time we had 31, but we're down a little bit. But it's a great organization. It's all about givers gain. So the givers gain philosophy. If you pass business around the table, people are going to reciprocate and pass
Mm-hmm.
business back to you. So we're all there to help each other grow our businesses and support each other.
And
And how you? Sorry, Kathleen, go ahead.
I was just going to ask you, so what can a business expect if they join a BNI? I mean, an increase in revenue, I'm sure.
Hopefully, yeah, that's what it's all about. We want to help each other grow each other's business, but a lot of support, right? BNI is a big organization. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of tools to help your business, not only within BNI, but your own business. And locally, it's hard to find good connections, and BNI does that like really well. You grow relationships within the chapter, and those last for a long time.
So do you work, because you're an international an international organization now, so how can your chapter communicate and deal with other chapters? How does that work?
Yeah, so our chapter belongs to the Ontario Southwest region, so it's from Guelph down to Windsor.
Oh.
But there's regions across the country and obviously around the world. We have a BNI Canada. Yeah, we have an app. We have an online platform where you can connect with any of those members anywhere around the world.
Oh, very good. And I was going to ask, while Kathleen was talking, it came to me, how are you managing with your meetings during the pandemic and the shutdown? Are you still having live meetings, or you gone like so much else onto Zoom?
Yeah, so no more in-person meetings. BNI obviously doesn't want that, put their members at risk. So they pivoted very quickly and got everybody up on Zoom. So we were only not meeting for 1 week.
Wow.
Yeah, they did a great transition and a lot of training, and got everybody back up and running. Only 1 week of downtime.
Oh, that's pretty good. The only downside to that is the one I went to, met for breakfast at quite a nice restaurant here in Woodstock up the road from you. And I went twice for breakfast. So now if it's on Zoom, you've got to make your own breakfast or lunch.
Yeah, no more breakfast, no more lunch.
And if I remember rightly, BNI is structured so you only have one or two of a similar business in a chapter, correct? So
yeah,
you're not...
Yes, your seed is protected, so it's only one business per category. So, for example, if one real estate agent, one mortgage broker, one digital marketer, that type of thing. Yeah, so if there's a referral for that specific business, there's no competition. You know who's going to get the referral.
And because of that mix of all types of different businesses, this is where you get the advantage of networking, because if Fred is a lawyer and George is a plumber, for instance, and Peter's a mortgage broker and Kathleen's a realtor, there's a little bit of business for everyone there between the various contacts, right? So,
yeah, absolutely. We have something called power teams, where there's a group of businesses that work really well together. I'll give you an example of a real estate power team would be a real estate agent, mortgage broker, that type of thing. And they real estate lawyer, they work really well together. So if there's one referral, it potentially could go through that whole group.
And how has it helped your WSI business?
Yeah, it's been great. I've actually joined BNI probably about 3 months after I started my business, and I've been in it ever since, so almost 10 years. Yeah, it's great. I grew a lot of good relationships, that people that become friends after a while, and they don't forget about you, and they always connect with you. And I've had the opportunity to network with hundreds of people, and from there it turns into business. So yeah, it's been great for my business.
Here's one for you, George. You talk to a lot of different types of businesses, and as we were talking earlier, some are doing well out of the pandemic and some are facing disaster. Someone who's, because of the pandemic, been downsized and they're now out of work and unlikely to get another job in their old field, what would your advice be to them if they're sitting at home thinking, I've got to try and start some sort of small business? What would your advice be?
My advice would be educate yourself, find out what you like to do, visit a networking chapter, or jump on a Zoom call. There's lots of business owners locally. I would, connect with your local chamber as well. Lots of great resources there. And kind of find out what's out there and what you like to do. It's important that you find something that, you're passionate about and what you like to do. And then from there, you can do your research. It's kind of what I did when I started my WSI business. I researched probably about 4 or 5 different businesses and came up with WSI. It was where I wanted to go. So yeah, educate yourself, find out what's out there. There's lots of opportunities. If it's not traditional, like a brick and mortar store, there's lots of stuff you can do online, right? You can start e-commerce business, you can sell products on Amazon, eBay, Etsy. There's lots of opportunities out there if you want to, transition to something different.
Sure. What about the franchise model? You've had now 10 years experience being a franchisee. There's some huge advantages of being in the franchise organization, isn't there?
Yeah, there's advantages and disadvantages,
Obviously.
like most businesses, but the advantages are, it's a proven platform. They've done a lot of the legwork for you, and they give you a roadmap. So you can if you follow the roadmap, you should be pretty successful.
Good. Yes. Yeah. Kathleen, you got anything else for George?
George, how do people contact you?
So the easiest way is to connect with me on LinkedIn. Yeah, that's kind of my preferred way to do it.
Okay.
You can go to my website, wsiworld.com/Jorge Meneses. You can connect with me there, or you can email me at jmeneses@jorgemenesseswsi.com.
I'll put all those on for our viewers and listeners. we got a little bit of time. I got one more question. My favorite one for people in their own businesses. If a person leaving high school, 17, 18, whatever, came to you and said, George, you've been working for yourself for 10 years now and you seem happy with what you're doing. I don't know what to do. My dad wants to send me to university. I have no idea what course I should take. I have no idea what to do. What would be your advice to that youngster?
My advice would be go to school. Maybe it's not the right course at this time, but you can always change as you go. It's important to educate yourself, and then from there, you can pivot.
Sure.
I went and worked in corporate for 24 years and left corporate and went out on my own. So. But I would definitely, my advice would be go to school, get educated, learn something. If it doesn't have to be university or anything like that. Trades are definitely something that you can do as well. And,
yep.
Get educated for sure.
That's right. Because, you mentioned trades. I don't care how good robots get and how clever artificial intelligence gets, but when old Mrs. Brown on the 22nd floor of an apartment building's toilet blocks at 2 o'clock in the morning, it needs a plumber to fix it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think there'll always be work for the trades. Well, George, I've said enough, and it's from me. That's great. Thank you for being here, Kathleen. I'm going to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, George. We really enjoyed having you on the show. So thank you. And thank you all for joining us today. We so appreciate you. And once again, please keep the comments coming because we read each and every one of them. And if anyone out there is interested in being a guest on our show, please don't hesitate to reach out to Peter or myself. And as Peter mentioned, you would really make our day if you went to YouTube and subscribed to our YouTube.
Subscribe.
Yes. So until next time, do take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.